Hello, this is Mary Renee. I hope you're having a great day on this 12th of the second month of 2025. So they say. And I am led to share with you another proof that I am a target. Not because I need to prove, but I hope it helps all of you understand how serious and how close we are to being given an opportunity that most have never had in their life. But first off, let me talk about this white van that I have put in front of us at the moment. Us meaning you, the viewer, who are looking at this the same time. Now, I hope you're willing to bear with me because I haven't written this down. So hopefully I can get it all out in a way without scattering or not completing a thought. Because this is a part that connected a lot of dots for me, this part I'm about to share. So in This Isn't It News, part 3.5, I shared of my experiences of being violently and raped, I guess I can say. And there was one of the times that it happened. I was still 13, and it was the one that I had blocked out for years. And that was a blessing. I didn't know at the time. But anyway, let me go back to that story because I never told any details about the story. And this white van is a very big part of that story. So, as I had said in my in part 3.5, how I was raped by my cousin at the age of 13. And then soon after, well, I'm not sure, months after, actually, because it was a year later, almost, after, when this next story I'm about to tell you happened. Because after what had happened from a family member who had taken my virginity, I didn't tell anybody for a long time. And as long as no one knew, it didn't happen to me. So my life did continue in a normal sort of way after what he did, because as long as no one knew, it didn't happen in my little head at the time. And he had left, so I didn't even have to see him anymore, and I was always hoping he'd never return. But if you go back to 3.5, you should hear how that happened, how I ended up having to tell everybody what happened. And it just, after that, I was a mess when it all came out. But before it all came out, my behavior did change. I started wearing pants on occasion, even shorts. I was getting more loose with how I wore clothing and trying to fit in with the crowd at the time. Well, anyway, I had gotten there was a girl that lived across the street who I had known, and I was invited by somebody. So what happened was I was outside, and a guy that knew my friend across the street, I don't want to say her name at the time, and someone came over and we started talking and chatting, and he's like, and he asked me my age, and I remember what he looks like. I don't remember his name though. And he asked me if I wanted to go out on a date. That was the first time anyone ever asked me to go on a date. He was kind of cute and he was real nice, so I said, yeah, but I'll have to ask my mom. So he's like, well, go ask her and come back and let me know. So right away, I ran in the house, and I was like, Mom, 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 someone asked me to go on a date. Can I go, please, please, please? And after about 5 minutes, and she asked me a few questions, which are proper. And I don't think she asked how old he was, but I never asked either, and he never said, and that didn't seem to be part of the conversation at that time. So I was excited. I'm not sure how long away it was, but I begged my mom to buy me a shirt. I begged her to buy me a new shirt, and she did. We didn't have a lot of money, so that was a big deal for her to do. It was a pretty white shirt. I thought it was so pretty. And that was what I was going to wear on the date. And we had agreed I would meet right out front of my house. And, of course, my dad didn't live there at the time, so there was no male figure wanting to come outside knowing who was wanting a date with me. So he wasn't in the picture, so I did not have a male guy didn't, come out with a gun type of dad. Sorry. Should have happened, but didn't. Anyway, well, this guy that came out never showed up. This guy that made the date. He never showed up. And I was disappointed, of course. First date and then my first rejection. First stood up, as to say. I didn't know the term then, but I remember the feeling. So he didn't show up. So all dressed up, feeling good about myself. Dressed up and pretty, new clothes, which I didn't get new clothes often. So there was a lot of reason for me not to go back in the house and just say poo-poo and just let it go to waste. I decided what I always do, go for a walk. I was going to go into town. I think there was some kind of fair or something going on. Well, I got a couple blocks away from my house. No sooner this van stops. And he's driving. And there's a girl in the passenger seat. And there's 2 or 3 girls sitting in the back. There were no seats in the back, mind you. And he stops and he's like, hey, what's going on? We're going to the fair or party or something. And I looked in there and the girls are like, yeah, come on, it's going to be fun, come on. I'm like, and they introduced themselves and I told them my name and I ended up climbing in. Now, granted, this was after the time the creepy man had tried to get me in the car with him. Okay, so then we're driving around, they're smoking a joint. I think there was a beer too. I didn't drink, but I think I smoked a couple hits of the marijuana. I remember everybody was happy and laughing and having a great time, and it was just like a party in the van. And that's all it ended up being, because we never went to a fair and we never went and stopped. He drove us around the whole entire night. At least 2-3 hours, right? Didn't stop once. And so as it started getting dark, he starts dropping the girls off one at a time. And after about, I guess it took a good 30 minutes to an hour to finally drop everybody off. And it was starting to get a little late. And so I was glad to be going home. I wasn't sure who this guy was. Strangely enough, I did get in the car with strangers. A van, no less, with girls my age. Now, let me tell you, these girls were my age. They were no threat to me. And I felt like there was no threat. So I was the last one to be dropped off, therefore leaving me alone with this man. And I still remember his face. I had never seen him since. But he parked before dropping me off at home, which he was told where I lived. Before he did that, he stopped 2 blocks away and parked on a dark street, but it was a residential area right out in front of probably his home. I don't know, because it was out in front of a home. and parked on a curb. Wasn't even, anyway, as soon as he did that, he immediately comes to the back, forces me down, and I'm just like fighting. I mean, it happened so quick. There was no time to get out. There was no time to fight. There was no time. He was on top of me, and he raped me, and I fought, and I fought, and I fought. And I fought. And that was terrifying and traumatizing, and that was nothing compared to what my family member had did to me. It was more wham bam, thank you ma'am, because I told him no, but he wouldn't stop, but there was no violence. And I knew after, and I wasn't going to let it happen again. And here I am in this situation that I foolishly got myself into. And that night, I did get to go home. In fact, he kicked me out the car after that, and I had to walk from there home. And I went home. I was bawling all the way home. I bawled. I know it was 2 blocks. I remember the street names, but that's unnecessary here. But I bawled and bawled and bawled that night, and to myself to sleep. And my mom, nobody heard me. I didn't tell anybody that night. I just went home, bawled, and went to sleep. And when I woke up that morning, it was gone. I didn't remember any of it. That was a blessing from God, I believe, because I didn't remember that for years. But I do believe that whether I realized it or not at the time, it did have psychological effects on me afterwards. Trauma does a lot to the brain, and they know this. So you can't tell me this wasn't planned. You can't tell me they didn't set this up. You can't tell me they used girls my age to make me feel safe to get into a car with a bunch of partying strangers. So and then it wasn't long after that everything came out about what my family member did, because I told you all in part 3.5 of This Isn't It News that he got caught in Florida doing the same thing to another girl on a beach, and while he was in prison there, he confessed to having done the same to me, and that's how it came out. Which at least he confessed. And I've forgiven him. And this man I've forgiven. I mean, this man was being used by the CIA. Now, had I remembered, I probably would have said something to somebody. I most definitely would have said something, because that was violent. And that was somebody I didn't know. I don't even remember who the girls were. You know how they do role-playing and their tactics. We have to be very careful. And if you young girls out there don't ever do these same stupid mistakes, I'm explaining to you now how they work. They will do street theater. They will set you up. They will try to hurt you. Because in their eyes, the end justifies the means. And it's only selfish in their eyes, because they just want to get what they can from you and leave you to hang to dry. Oh, you know how hard it is to talk about this stuff? Very hard. And I'm here to give any one of you who have experienced these type of scenarios where it's just too many things for it to just be random. I have a lot more to share with you. That's crazy. I mean, there's no way all the things that have happened in my life that I've only shared a fraction of are coincidence. And there's no way outside of what God has done and the way He has guided me. It's always what they're fighting against. They want you to curse God. They want you to deny God. Just like in the book of Job. They're after those who love God regardless. Because we know we live in an evil world. And there's men with free will. And those men who choose not to do the will of God will not have any part of the coming kingdom that we have in our hearts. And as long as you have breath, it's not too late if you haven't turned to Jesus yet. If you want to see through the deception, you have to go to Jesus. You have to read the Word. It's all there. You seek righteousness and His ways, and you will never have to worry about the devil's schemes anymore. I don't live in fear. I was in my 20s when this memory came back to me, and it was very traumatizing at the time. But it was healing at the same time because I was in a safe space. I was in a rehab, and it was a game that they had other abused women and drug addicted women at. And it was a very healing place. And I was blessed to be able to go to such a place that really cared. Now today I'm not so sure how many of these places are left that actually care about people and want them to grow and overcome the mind games the enemy have played with us for many years. I love you all. Don't let the white van, cause you to fear. Don't let the white man cause you to fear. Don't let any man cause you to fear. You are beloved and favored. In Jesus' name, His kingdom will remain. Be ready.